Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes. I'm in class right now. Hello? Hello?
Yes, hello?
Yeah. The class is started already?
The class is about to start, but he's not here yet.
Earlier? Taken? Hello?
No, the class hasn't started yet.
Not start yet?
No, it hasn't started yet.
Huh? Hello?
Yeah, I said no. I have a signal problem. No.
Oh, okay. So what time is?
Good morning, folks. This is Subhash here. Welcome back to the class. You get started in a minute.
Hey, Subhash.
Hi.
Good morning, Subhash.
Hey, Ganesh. All right. I think last week we spoke about the software development lifecycle, and to be precise, we spoke about the design in its software development model. Said that there are different aspects, phases. We spoke about the analysis, requirements gathering, design, development, testing, implementation. Also, we did talk about the waterfall methodology, where in waterfall we said that in the process of implementing the solution, it's a linear model, and we basically take step-by-step approach towards implementing the solution. And waterfall model basically has limitations. As you know, one of the biggest limitations is that you have to take step-by-step approach. You just cannot go back. Once you finish a phase and you move on to the next phase, you cannot go back to the previous phase. So that is one of the limitations that we analyzed last week. So today we are going to basically deep dive and discuss about RUP methodology. As you see here, RUP stands for Rationally Unified Process. Before I get started, any questions with respect to any of the aspects that we spoke so far? All right. So when you're implementing the software development lifecycle using the RUP model, the whole process of the software development is broken down into 4 phases. So to start with, the inception, elaboration, construction, and translation. Right. So in the process of implementing the software solution using the RUP methodology, the whole process, as I said, is actually broken down into 4 phases: inception, elaboration, construction, and translation. Okay. So let's go ahead and before I actually start talking about this RUP model, one of the biggest advantages of this methodology is that it allows you, unlike the waterfall methodology, it allows you to kind of move back and forth between phases. And even if you are not 100% complete with the implementation of a particular phase, if you have enough inputs and if you are, if you still have to, work on the current phase, you can still move on with whatever inputs that you have. You can proceed with the next phase, and you can go back. So basically, it allows you to be kind of flexible and move back and forth between the phase. Okay. So with that being said, let's go ahead and quickly start talking about the first phase, inception. Okay. So inception basically is, as you see here, is the first phase of this process. And in the inception phase, some of the milestones that are accomplished to start with is high-level use case definition. So when we are in the inception phase, these are the milestones which you definitely have to make sure that they are accomplished. So to start with, the high-level use case definition, then followed by the feasibility and risk analysis. Risk analysis also follows the mitigation plan. Okay. So before you basically move forward from inception to the elaboration, you have to make sure that you are at least 70 to 80% complete with the feasibility study and analysis. So now, first of all, let's quickly talk about high-level use case definition. What is this use case definition? I'm going to talk about use cases probably today and tomorrow, but for now, all you need to understand is use case is one way of defining high-level requirements. That's all you need to understand. I repeat, use case is one way of defining requirements. Okay. So as part of the inception phase, we are going to identify at a very high level, what are the different aspects that are required. Very high level requirements are identified and documented. Saying that, okay, for this project, these are the high level, at a high level, these are the different things that we need to accomplish as part of the automation. Okay. And once we identify it, then we perform the feasibility study. Yeah.
High level from what business or
high level from the business perspective. In other words, I can also say this as a scope definition. In simple words, if you want me to put it. Okay. So once the scope is defined, once the feasibility and analysis is complete, then the next step basically is your budget plan. Then you also have your project plan in place. So budget plan, you have to make sure that you are at least 60 to 70% complete. Then the project plan should also be at least 60 to 70% complete. So technically, at a high level, these are the different aspects which are identified. And before you move on from inception to the next phase, you have to make sure that at least these are the bare minimum things that you have in place, and then with this percentage completion. Who's saying that it should be at least 60 to 70%? It's the RUP. It's IBM who has defined this process. Yeah, Ganesh, you have a question. Go ahead.
I wanted to know, is this the same thing as saying it has an L0? Is this the L0 plan? Like, you know how you have the L0 document? Sorry.
Correct. Yeah. So L0 basically is level 0. It's kind of high level. So again, there is no rule which says that it has to be only this much percentage completed. But technically, if you have the inputs, you can go ahead and finish it. But at least this is the bare minimum percentage that should be completed in case if you decided to move forward to the elaboration. See, what happens sometimes is one of the limitations what we discussed with the waterfall methodology is, let us say when you are defining the scope, right? Business probably has defined 50% of the scope, and they are still working on 40%, which may take time, right? It may take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So technically, waterfall says that you're just not moving forward. Whatever high level you have, you just have to wait. Yeah, you have to complete it 100% before you move on, right? But the advantage here with the inception is, now that I have high level requirements, I can move on. I don't have to wait for the high level requirements to be identified. With whatever inputs I have, I can go ahead and start my low level requirements or my design or whatever activities that need to be done. I'm not waiting for anything. Right? So the next phase is the elaboration phase. Just give me one quick second, folks. All right. So in the elaboration phase, first of all, as you see here, the objective of elaboration phase is to elaborate the requirements. So as of now, you basically have identified the high-level requirements, high-level use cases. Now here, as part of the elaboration phase, you're going to deep dive and document the low-level use case, low-level requirements, right? So here, say low-level use case definition. And again, as part of this, different type of documents that you may document is the BRD and the FRD, use case diagrams. All these are different aspects that you may document as part of the elaboration process. Right? Yeah, Rohil, you have a question?
Oh yeah, I couldn't see that you were typing, and apparently it just appeared all of a sudden, so that's fine.
Pause the screen for a second. I apologize. Yeah. So, as part of the low-level use case definition, you basically go ahead and document the low-level requirement. Any and every requirement with respect to the process. So the use cases, the BRD, FRD, I know we haven't spoken about them, but technically from tomorrow, or by end of the day, from tomorrow, we will start off with the use cases, the BRD, FRD, and those concepts. Okay? But for now, all you need to understand is these are different ways of documenting. That's all you need to understand for. Okay? So once, as part of the elaboration phase, once you have documented the requirements, the most important thing that you will be working on as part of this process is prototype. This is one of the critical aspects of elaboration phase. And when you start working on the requirements, in addition to the requirements, the low-level use cases, you also, IBM strongly recommends that you come up with a prototype. What exactly is a prototype? Anybody knows what is a prototype?
Prototype.
Right. So a working sample or a dummy lookalike of the end product. Right? But the question is, we have documented requirements, we have elaborated all the requirements, and we know what we are going to deliver. Business obviously should know what they are going to get. But what is the objective of defining a prototype? So, I mean, why do we need to come up with a model? Right? Why do we need to show them a sample? See, there are a lot of instances where, as a business analyst, you will be interacting with the business users, and you will be analyzing the requirements, you will be documenting the requirements, and you will have these requirements reviewed with them, and they are going to approve it. And once the development is complete, and once they start looking at the product that they have asked for, there are several situations where the business is not happy with what they have used. Right? I mean, but after looking at this product, the question can be, is this what I asked for? You know, I'm kind of disappointed with what I got. Right? So this is the main reason for this disappointment is that they did not have a visual overview of what they were getting. Right? They don't know what they are getting. They did not have a visual overview or a look and feel of what they were getting. Right? So in order to avoid this, right? See, rather than just trying to fix things after you burn the hands, at this moment we still have time. We have documented the requirements. Now we are designing a prototype. I'm going to talk about what a prototype is, how it is developed in a minute. But the goal here is to document the requirements and come up with a prototype design and show them that, okay, this is what you are going to get based on the requirements that you have asked for, based on what we agreed on. This is what you are going to get. Are you okay with that? Because the reason why we are doing this, if there is a correction that is required, we can still fix it. Because if you are trying to fix things after development, you have already spent time, money on developing the product. But here, we could avoid all those issues. Right? Now, let's talk about prototype. How is the prototype developed? Who creates these prototypes? I think these are two things that you need. So see, depending on the organization, prototype sometimes is developed by a business analyst, and most of the time it is developed by user interface developers. They are also called as designers. Okay. Now these designers, they would use HTML or some Flash technology to design the screens, and it may not exactly behave like or look like the end product, but at least they'll try to make it as close as the end product. Like a bunch of screens where they know where to click, how to navigate, how the screen will look like, kind of a high level overview. Right? Now, if a business analyst is designing these screens, you may use different user interface markup tools like Mountshare, Balsamic. There are several tools which we will talk when we are documenting requirements, because it is very important that as a business analyst you understand how the prototype is designed, how UI markups are created. We'll talk about them. It's very simple to learn these tools. Hardly, I would say, spend 10-15 minutes, you will be good. It's just drag and drop features. Yeah.
Design and development is not involved in the prototype.
Okay, so your question is, so when the prototype is being designed, is the design and development involved in this process? Depends. Sometimes they are too busy with their activities. They have already their activities pipeline. and sometimes they will be involved depending on which stage of the project are we in, depending on the bandwidth they have. But in my case, whenever I used to document requirements, most of the time I never invited any of the technical guys. But however, if I felt that there is a complex requirement which probably may be challenging and which I'm not sure of, I would always invite the technology team. And even if, in spite of inviting, they probably may not show up. So what I would do is, as soon as I'm done with the requirement session or prototyping or whatever, I would basically quickly go back and then show them, okay, this is what they're asking, and this based on what they're asking, this is basically what we have to do. Do you think there could be a challenge from a technology perspective? So either way, you know, I think you should basically try your best to always keep them in the loop in this whole process. RUP model is also popularly called as prototyping model, because see, end of the day, when you are creating these prototypes, you know, it basically gives you a good look and feel, and people have a very clear visual overview of what they're going to do. Right. So pretty much once your prototyping is complete, parallelly you will be, you know, working on finishing the other aspects which were pending, which is the feasibility analysis and also your budget planning. I mean, having said that your requirements are also 100% complete, your budget plan will be complete, your project plan will be complete. Pretty much all the aspects here will be taken to 100% completion. Any questions on the elaboration phase?
Hi, Subhash. I had a question.
Yeah.
This may sound dumb, but when you're making up a prototype and you're setting it all up, and you said that you can ask the questions of the technology team, how much of information do you need about the industry to do this? Or again, just like you said before, it doesn't matter at all. You just learn the software and then you can do this on your own.
Okay. First of all, we are not learning. Okay, so as part of the prototype development, when you are coming up with a prototype, this question is how much of the industry knowledge is required? In the sense, let us say if I'm working in a financial industry like a bank, right, or a mortgage product, or if I'm working on some healthcare applications or some pharmaceutical applications or telecom applications. This question is, while defining this prototype, while developing this prototype, how much of this industry background do I need? See, I think having said that you have already documented requirements, you pretty much know what goes into a prototype, first of all, right? Now, taking a step back, when I'm documenting requirements, I'm going to be interacting with the business users, right? So when I start interacting with the business users, then if I have some business background, like some domain knowledge with respect to the industry that I'm working in, it will help. It will help accelerate and learn things quickly. But however, even if you do not know anything about the domain, you can still learn. I still remember one of the, I think 10 years back, I was hired as a business analyst in one of the insurance companies, right? I had absolutely no clue about how insurance works. Zero knowledge. I was pretty new to the country, and so the first day I got into the office. Within 10 minutes, they pulled into a meeting, okay? And there was a 30-minute conversation, and I had no clue what was going on. But in this 30 minutes, I heard everybody talk about this one word again and again, which is underwriter. right? I didn't know who underwriter was long back, right? So the first thing what I did after the meeting, whatever keywords that they were talking about, all I did, I just noted all those keywords and I started researching. Who an underwriter is, what is quote means, what is policy means, what is binding means. So it didn't take much time because it was not rocket science, first of all. It's a simple insurance process. I think any business that you could think of, be it loan origination or be it banking, be any application that you take, any model that you take, any business that you take. No business is rocket science. You just have to concentrate. Probably, yeah, it will take a month or two for you to kind of deep dive and start getting a hang of things. But I think business knowledge, domain knowledge, I would say, yeah, it's nice to have because from day one your life is going to be easy. You don't have it, I don't think it's really going to, hamper your chances. You just have to focus more and work little extra, pay a little more time on learning. So moving on to the construction phase. So as part of the construction phase, the first document that is developed here basically is the design, which is the technical design document, and also the project solution. These are the two critical milestones accomplished as part of the construction phase. Right. I repeat, as part of the construction phase, the construction activity involves two tasks. One is coming up with the technical design and the project solution. So technical design, what is the technical design? It's basically designing the architecture of the product. See, every software product will have a technical design or should have a technical design or technical architecture, right? If I go by the same example, when you want to construct a house, the first thing is you know what your requirements are. You know that you need a 5-bedroom house. You know that you need a swimming pool. You know that you need a living room, right? So once you have these requirements ready, are you going to hire the construction team or are you going to hire the architects to design the architecture, right? The first thing is you design the architecture of it. Similarly, even here in the IT industry, as part of the process, once your requirements are completed, then the next step is designing the architecture of the process. So without an architecture design, you cannot start the development. Same, right? Okay, so basically what you're saying is in this process, we already have a prototype. Prototype is not a technical architecture design. Prototype is basically a lookalike. A simple example is, let's say if you're constructing a huge mansion or probably a shopping mall, you will have a design, right? A prototype. A prototype is basically a sample, which probably is like a 3 or 4 foot looking model of the process. But that itself is not the technical architecture. It's not going to give you the technical architecture. It's just going to show you at a high level, right? Based on that, I'll not be able to start the construction activity at all. Right? So once the construction, as part of the construction activity, you go ahead and you implement the technical design, and the technical design is documented by the technical architects. So every project will have a technical architecture team who are responsible for designing the architecture. Okay, now here again, what is your role as a business analyst? You will be interacting with them. You will be analyzing the requirement, and you will basically help them understand the requirements and make sure that they are in sync with what needs to be done. And if they have any questions with respect to the whole process, as a business analyst, you answer those requirement-related questions. And again, you are not validating the design because, see, I'm a business analyst. I have no clue what technical architecture says. Right? I'm not involved in any of the validation of the technical design document.
Subhash, I have one quick question before we move on.
I'm sorry?
I have one quick question before we move on.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the house building example, you just said that architecture is a completely different person, the construction crew, which actually builds the house. So in this scenario, in our scenario, the technical design team, would it be the same team which actually also writes the program?
No. What he's asking is, so we know that there is a technical architecture team who is going to design the architecture, but we also have a construction team who is going to develop the solution, right? If you go back to the construction of a house, we have civil engineers who design the architecture, but civil engineer is not going to go on the ground to construct the house, right? His job is only to design the architecture. Right? And once he designs the architecture, he is going to pass on the requirements, the architecture designs to the developers. Like a civil engineer is basically passing the architecture plan to the construction team. Similarly, even here, the architect and the team will pass the architecture requirements to the developers. Yes. This is the life cycle. So now, as part of this, the most important thing that you need to understand here is a technical architect was also probably a programmer, when he started his career, right? Now, normally developers or programmers, once they get solid 8 to 10 years experience, and if they are really experts, depending on what they want to do, they may choose project management. They may choose to get into architecture design, right? So once they get into architecture design, normally they would never come back to programming again. It's just a further step, up about the it's about upgrading. So basically, once you finish your career as a programmer and you move on to project management or be it technical architecture, you don't want to come down. You don't want to. All you want to do is design the architecture and then test it. Okay. And as part of the project solution is all about implementing the software and solution. And once this project solution is implemented, then the project moves on to the transition. And as part of the transition phase, the first thing that happens here is defining the test plan, test cases. So pretty much the test plan, test cases are defined, documented, and also the testing team basically is going to sign off and approve on the product. But before the product is actually delivered to the customers, there is one more important milestone that is accomplished, which is the user manual. User manual, right? A user manual basically is a manual which defines and documents what are the different features available in the product. How would you go about using those products? Those features in the product. Just like, you go buy any product in the market, you have a manual, right? So similarly, as part of the transition phase, you basically identify all the different features. And normally what also happens is when you have different types of users in an application, right, in a software product, you have to basically focus on target those users and you have to document you have to segregate the user manual based on the audience. So I was responsible for, when I was working with this insurance firm, I was responsible for creating this user manual, right? This was an insurance company, okay? So this application that we developed was used by multiple users. One group of users was the operations team, right? One group of users was the underwriters. One group of users was the agents, insurance agent. One type of user was the client. So there were different types of audience involved, and I had to make sure, because see, if I'm a client who is trying to log in, so from my perspective, I wouldn't care about operations features, right? If I'm an operations team, then I have my own set of things that I would do, right? So all these are different aspects we have to focus on while documenting the user manual. And normally, user manuals are documented by technical writers. There is a special role in the industry, and that role is called as technical writer. So these users or these writers are specialists in documenting user manuals. Sometimes, in rare cases, you may also be documenting this. It is as good as documenting functional requirements. Okay. Any questions?
After the prototype, when it goes to the technical design team, then it's no going back. Like whatever has been invented is what is passed on to technical team, and then they go with development. And if the stakeholder comes back saying, "Oh, I forgot this," or we need to incorporate this.
Okay. So your question is, so once we are done with the prototyping, and once we move on to the implementation, right? And at this point, when the development activity is in progress, and at that point, if the business is coming back and asking for a change, how would you handle it? It's probably what your question is. I think handling the changes, consuming the changes purely depends on which stage of the project are we in. I mean, I agree that we are in the development stage, but how much of the development did we finish? Right? 10%, 20%, 30%. Even if we have finished 80%, I'm still going to consider looking at the fact that there is a change they're asking. Is there a room for me to implement the change? How critical is the change? How important is this change? Right? See, sometimes what happens is there is a new state or federal law that is passed, and every system has to be in compliance with the law. Normally they give time, but sometimes it's very critical, and you have to make sure that your systems are in compliance with the state and federal law. And when you have to do it, you have to do it, right? So in that case, probably there will be an impact in the budget. There may be impact in the you will document the change request, whatever the change that they're asking, understand the impact of the change, and again, as I said, there may be a budget impact or a schedule impact, delivery timelines impact. All this pretty much analysis is done by the technology team and the project manager, and it is presented to the business. See, sometimes the change could be as simple as changing a sentence displayed on the web page. Right? So, there will be a change request, but normally the technical team won't push you back. If it's just a verbal change, it's not even going to take them a minute to update the grammatical changes or verbal changes. But if the features or functionalities that are being added, probably they have to investigate and they have to come back. And also, I think that also reminds me of another important aspect. Most of the time, when you are working with the business, even in spite of finishing your requirements, even in spite of having an official sign-off on the requirements, the business always keeps coming back. And you know what? I had several instances where we start, the development was in progress, and the business comes back, and they're like several instances where, oh, Subhash, this is a very small change. Can you just take care of it? I don't think it's going to take much of development activity. They don't know what development activity is required. It's incorrect. They assume that it's not going to take much time, but the actual evaluation of the time that is required is only estimated correctly by the technical team. Right? Now, if I go back and if I tell the development team that, this is a small change, it won't require much time, they will be pretty annoyed and frustrated. They're going to give it back. The first thing they're going to tell you is that you are not the right person to decide whether this is a small change or a big change, with the exception of some, grammatical changes or some UI changes. So, right? So normally, most of the time, business, several situations they come back and say, oh, so but I think it's a very change. I'm sure you can do it. So when business is pushing you to get a lot of things done, they are giving you a lot of changes and asking and expecting you to get it done in the same time, in the same release. The first thing, you have to be diplomatic. Never say no, never say yes. Okay? Let me get back to you. The first thing, because you don't know what the technology team is working on and how much time it's going to take, right? Never ever give a commitment saying that, okay, we are going to get it done. Yeah, I'm not going to pass it on and we are going to get it done. No. The moment you say it, you will be held at gunpoint. So you never get into a situation where you are not sure about things and you are committing. I mean, not only the interaction, but any task that anybody is asking you to do, right? Let's say if the project manager is coming in and asking you to get a job done, and he's asking you how long is it going to take. First of all, make sure that you understand what is he expecting, right? I mean, he probably may expect you to get it done in the next couple of hours, or probably next couple of days. But it is very important that you understand at what point is he expecting that delivery to be completed, right? If he's not telling you, the first basic thing is to ask and make sure you understand what his expectations are. And if the question comes to you saying that, okay, how long will it take? And if you're not sure, do not give it time. Saying that, oh, I'll get it done in a day or two. If you don't know the volume of work involved, you can always say that, okay, I can go back, I can get back to you probably in the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour, and I'll let you know how much time would I need. Right? It is always good to under-promise and over-deliver. Right? Promise them less and deliver them good. But if you are giving them expectations and if you're not keeping up, that is not good. This is a human psychology everywhere, right? Not only in the IT industry.
Other related question was like in waterfall technology, once we are done with one stage, we cannot go back. But in this, like if we can go back.
Correct. So in the RUP model, basically you can go back and forth. But again, how much can you go back? There is a limit on what you can deliver and what you cannot, and you basically have to act accordingly as per the plan, based on the situation you are.
Subhash, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when we're working with the waterfall model, the stakeholders already know that we cannot go back and make any changes. Do they still come up to you and they're like, okay, you know what, this is a small thing that we have to change, so do we have to start all over again? Or how do we tackle a situation like this?
See, what happens is so in the agile, typical waterfall model, when you have finished documenting your requirement and you move on to the design or development, if the business is asking for a change, then basically it's as simple as that we cannot accommodate the change. And the change that they're asking for will be accommodated in the next release, or if they're insisting on having the process implemented or change implemented right away, then you start from the scratch again. You go back to the planning, you review your planning. You have to start from the scratch. Review your planning, analysis, and go on.
If the change has to make they're like.
See, okay, so every change will not, first of all, if you have to know what is POC. POC stands for proof of concept. Okay. Now, every change may not require, depending on the type of the change, a change may be a small change or probably a huge change, right? So depending on the type of the change, depending on what is involved in the changes, depending on the project, depending on the situations, sometimes you may need a POC and you may not. It all depends on the project. Right. Ajay, is that good?
Yes, Subhash, thank you.
Okay. So normally what happens is when a change, when business is asking for a change, it is documented in separate document called as PR. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to show you some documents also. When a change request is being documented, when a change is coming from the business, you have to make sure that the project manager is in loop. You have to make sure that the testing team is also in the loop, and also the developer. Everybody has to be in sync. Whenever a business change comes in, the architecture team, which is the design team, the development team, the testing team, because every phase is being impacted, right? The architecture may change, right? The development obviously has to put some effort. The testing team also has to, document their plan accordingly. Even their plan will change, right? So it is a ripple effect on the whole life cycle, on every team. Every phase will get impacted. So you have to basically keep every individual or every team member in the loop whenever there is a change coming. Yeah.
Who decides which methodology has to be followed for any particular project?
Okay, that's a good question. So the question is, who decides which methodology has to be implemented for which project? Now, I'm going to deep dive and I'm going to give an example to illustrate how it works. But however, just to answer your question, the decision is made by the technical team, and the decision is purely driven based on the business requirement. So based on what the business is asking for, you may probably want to implement it by Agile or RUP or Waterfall, whatever method. But I'm going to take an example right now, and I'm going to deep dive and illustrate how things work, which methodology suits which model. So all those are things that I'm going to deep dive in a minute.
Hey, Subhash, I have a question.
Yeah.
Suppose, if the business, they want to make any changes, before planning and before everything, before the development and all that, can we give any particular date to the business that if they want to make any changes, this is the day, small changes or big changes, you can let us know by this date, and after that, the project and the development is going to start?
I think that's a very good point that you brought up. What he's saying is, if the business basically wants changes, is there a date where we can say, okay, this is the cutoff date, and after this date, there are no more changes? Is there a concept like that? Yes, that's how it works. Normally what happens is, when we discussed about the requirements gathering phase will have a start date and will have an end date, right? So the end date technically is the cutoff date for any new change, any requirement that can be consumed. And also, even after your requirements are complete, normally dates are documented from a process perspective. But technically, if the business who is actually coming and sponsoring you, funding you, and they're asking for something, you cannot blindly say no, and you cannot say that, oh, you know what, we agreed on a date, I'm not going to, I don't give a damn about what you're asking. That's not how it works, right? You have to be accommodating, but technically from a process perspective, yes, you will have an agreement with the business, saying that, okay, this is where we are starting your requirement gathering, and this is the cutoff date. And after this, anything comes, we will not be able to accommodate in the current release. Yeah, probably we'll consume it and we'll deliver it in the next release, though, but not for this release. And again, depending on how critical the requirement is, I mean, business always wants, flexibility from technology, right?
That's why a lot of projects ended up in
the Yeah, I mean, there could be several reasons as of why the project is delayed. It could be because of the, or technical resource availability, or some technical challenges, or a lot of change requests coming in, right? So there could be several things that could be impacted. All right. Anybody, any questions before I move on to the agile methodology? Solid. Agile. Agile is one of the very, very popular models in the current industry. And I would say as of now, at least 70 to 80% of the projects that are being implemented are following Agile methodology. Okay? Agile is a very aggressive model. It's a very popular model. And when you're implementing a software solution using Agile, one of the biggest advantages is that it is very flexible in terms of the process, in terms of the changes that we can accommodate. And in Agile, there are so many different flavors. We have what you call object-oriented model. Scrum is one type of Agile. There are different flavors under Agile, but Agile is, I'm going to talk about the Scrum model or methodology eventually, but I think to answer the question that we had previously, the question was, how would you decide which methodology basically will fit to which project? When who decides, and of course it's the technology team is going to decide, but how are they going to decide which model fits which industry? Let's take a simple. Let us say, so we have a project scope defined at a high level. In the business, there is a Bank of America, right? So they want to have a web application developed, right? A web-based application developed, a banking application, right? Developed for their process. And in this banking application, there are certain set of features that they wanted, right? Maybe a login feature. Right? Customer should, I mean, these are the basic features that any banking application may have, right? A login feature, then also a feature where the customer can view the account summary, right? In account summary, they probably may want to look at their checking accounts or savings accounts or credit card, right? So this is one feature. Then funds transfer. In funds transfer, again, there could be multiple. It could be internal, right? It could be external. It could be international. Then we also have statements, right? Statements and reports. This is one feature that you could think of, right? Then you can also have transactions. Is one feature that you could think of, and you can also have some products and services. Let's say the business is basically asking for all this. Okay, we have a new product that we have found, and for this product we need a website which has all these features of functionality. Okay. Now when this scope basically is shared to the business, to the technology team. The project manager basically is going to evaluate the project scope, and he'll come back and he'll say that, okay, assuming that I'm going to start this project in Jan 2016, right? Assuming that I'm going to start this project in Jan 2016, I can finish this project and deliver it by Jan 2017. So I would need 1 year to finish all these features and deliver this fully functioning website with all these functionalities. I would need 1 year, right? Now, when the business basically is looking at this plan, probably they are not happy with what they are seeing. See, they have already enrolled the customers. They want to enroll the customers. Just because we don't have a website doesn't mean that we are going to hold them for 1 year. That doesn't make sense, right? And obviously, even in spite of having 20 developers, or even if you double the team, you cannot deliver it in 2 or 3 months, right? Right? That's not possible, right? Yeah. So 9 mothers cannot deliver a baby in 1 month. It takes its own time, right? So when this plan is shared with the technology team, the business, then the business probably may ask for a breakup, right? Saying that, okay, fine, we understand that you need 1 year to develop it, but we don't want you to develop and deliver everything on day one, right? So by March 2016, right? By end of March 2016, they'll give us a website where the customers can log in, and they should be able to barely view their account balance. That's all. All we want is a website where they can log in, and they should be able to see all their checking, savings account, and credit card details. That's all. We don't want anything more. Assuming that you should be able to accomplish by March 2000, right? Now, by June 2016, deliver the funds transfer. So we have a website. By March, we have a running website which has, login and account summary features. By June, we want this website to have one more feature added, which is the funds transfer, where the customer can transfer funds internally, externally, and intra, right? And by September 2016, deliver us the statements and right? And by Jan 2017, deliver us the remaining 2 features, which is transaction. So now here, with this mode of delivery, what is the advantage? The advantage is that the customer is not waiting for 1 year, right? The customers are always getting, intermediate delivery, right? Now, this basically is an agile approach, right? But let us say if the business was okay to implement the whole project in one shot, then it would have been a different approach where we are following the waterfall model. We are basically taking one step at a time. You finish all the required analysis, then you finish all your requirements, right? You finish everything in one shot, complete them, and then you finish. But here, with the requirement that the business is asking for, we have to choose the model as agile model. And an agile model is also called as iterative model. Iterative model or iterative methodology. Yeah. Okay. So now here, from Jan to March, right? What exactly is happening? So this is a window, right? From Jan to March, this window is called as an iteration. Iteration. Let's say this is called as iteration number 1. Iteration number 1, or you can also call it I1, whatever. Right? I repeat. From Jan to March, the cycle is called as, this period is called as a iteration. I'm going to talk about what an iteration means in a second. Okay. Then from March to June, we have one more iteration, which is called as, let's say, iteration 2. Iteration 3 and iteration 4. So technically the whole project was actually broken down into iterations or iterations, whatever you want to call it. And it was implemented. Okay. Now, what exactly is an iteration? What happens in an iteration? An iteration or iteration is basically a process where you implement the software. Okay. Now, what exactly happens in this iteration? Right. So in this, let's talk about iteration 1. In iteration 1, we know that we want to implement, our scope is defined for this iteration, right? We want to implement the login and the accounts features as part of the iteration 1, right? Now, with that being said, you basically go ahead and you analyze, you perform your analysis, right? So you document the requirement, you design the architecture, you develop the solution, then you test and you run. Right? So all the phases that we discussed in our software development lifecycle, right, will be happening in the typical iteration. So just to make it very clear, a typical iteration will have the same set of steps, which includes the analysis, requirements gathering, design, development, testing, and production or implementation.
Each step has data support.
Okay. So now, so technically what happens is now that as part of the analysis in iteration 1, you know what you need to do. You basically go ahead and perform your analysis, and then you gather requirements, and you design, develop, test, and so once you are complete with this iteration, then what happens? Then you start the next iteration, right? What happens in the second iteration? What is the scope? Your funds transfer, right? Now what are we going to do now? In the second iteration? Again, you perform the analysis, you gather the requirements, you design, develop. Yeah, you have to document requirements for the second iteration. You know, you have to perform the analysis, you have to gather the requirements, design, develop, test, implement.
Is it the requirements gathered in the first phase itself?
In the first stage, what we said was we identified a high-level scope, saying that, okay, as part of the project, okay, we know that we want a feature called as funds transfer, but we did not document requirements. We did not spend time documenting requirements. Because this is an agile environment. Agile is all about implementation in an iterative approach. You are breaking down the whole process and you are delivering it in iteration.
But without the whole requirement gathering and the evaluation process, then how did we come at the proposal that will take like 1 year? If the requirement was not gathered
because what happens is, so the estimation basically is done by the project manager, you know, whether it is 1 year or 2 years. At a high level, he basically analyzes the processes involved in the project, and then he's coming up with an estimate. I mean, the estimate could go wrong again, right? Estimate is not always right. Estimate, anything that could go wrong will go wrong. Correct. So in the second iteration, what happens? We have the funds transfer feature that you want to implement. Again, you perform your analysis, you gather the requirements, you design, develop, test, and you deliver. Again, what happens in iteration 3? Again, the same thing, right? So now to define what exactly is an iteration, iteration is nothing but a cyclic process. The repetition of the same steps again and again and again until you accomplish your goal. Right. Basically, you broke down the whole complexity into multiple phases, and you're giving incremental deliverables. See, that is one of the biggest advantages of RUP. Now, Agile is basically most of the business is asking for Agile implementation because Agile is a very, very fast mode of delivery, right? And in Agile, you basically identify your priorities. See, there are 100 things to do, right? In this project, we said there are like around 30, 40 things to do as part of the application. But what are we doing? We are identifying what exactly is needed now. What is the topmost priority? Identify it, get it done, and move on. So in this way, you are prioritizing, and again, your priorities may keep changing. So for instance, as part of your iteration, you probably, iteration 2, you may have new feature that is coming in, which is topmost priority. So you may push whatever is in the second iteration to the third iteration. So in this way, you prioritize the deliverables, and you start working and implement. And again, priorities keep changing always. And also, I think one of the questions was, do we have the feasibility to go back and forth in this whole process? Yes. In this whole process, you can basically keep going back and forth between requirements gathering and design, or development and requirements. And again, can we accommodate the changes? There are things where the development team has to be in loop and things like that. But normally, if you're asking me the window as of how long is an iteration going to take place, an iteration technically will be anywhere between 3 to 6 months. Normal. It could go longer than that, but on average, normally, it depends on the project, depends on how you want to organize it. I just took a very simple example, but the project may be complex, and they probably may need 7 or 8 months also, or even more as well. It's up to the project how complex, how critical it is. How critical their features are, and how long it's going to take. There are several features. There are several factors that drive how things will be done. The expectations are set very clearly. Right? There is no room for anybody to make assumptions and think that okay, everything will be done in 2 months or 3 months. Whenever there is a scope that is being planned, the business has to know how long it's going to take to get it delivered. So the project manager is responsible for ensuring that the estimates are clearly identified and documented. There may be deviations, but the deviation cannot be like 50-60%. There may be like around 5-10% deviation. And again, that has to, normally what happens is during the project plan, it is the responsibility of the project manager is to analyze the effort required and plan things accordingly. But what we see happening most of the time is the project plan is underestimated, the work is underestimated most of the time. And if you're asking me why it is underestimated, because the project manager wants to keep the business happy, right? And who is going to suffer at the end of the day? It's the technical team. If they are asked to do,
Subhash, I have a quick question before we move on.
An activity which is taking 2 months, they're asking me to deliver in 45 days, which obviously they have to spend additional time to implement, and it is basically stressful for everybody in the project. Yeah, Ganesh, go ahead.
So the question I wanted to ask was, I don't think it fits into this example, but like you said, because there are different iterations that you're going through, is it possible that you could have for one iteration, like maybe the technical team decides that you could have waterfall methodology in here, but in the rest we don't?
Yeah, that also happens. So what he's asking is there a possibility that we start off and implement the whole solution with a waterfall model, and then eventually we go ahead with agile? That is also possible. I'll give an example. So let us say the business basically is agreeing that, okay, we can wait for 1 year, go ahead and implement this and give us everything in one shot, right? So we agreed that we'll take step by step, we'll finish the whole planning, the whole requirements gathering, and we deliver it in a waterfall approach, right? Once it is delivered, then we may have change request enhancements coming in, and these are depending on the type of the change. We can quickly analyze all the changes and we can basically implement them using an agile approach also. So once the project is complete, you can also move from waterfall model to agile. That is also a possibility, depending on the process and depending on what exactly is required. It could be. But normally what is happening right now is, logically, most of the projects are moving from waterfall to agile, not the other way. Otherwise, I haven't seen it happen. See, the thing is, waterfall is kind of a slow process, right? You want to go from slow to fast, but not from fast mode to the slow mode. Normal. Yes.
In this iterative model, suppose has been implemented in iterative 1 and 2, and in phase 4, whatever we have implemented in phase 1, and if the stakeholder wants some changes or wants to keep it.
Very good question. So his question is, let us say we are working on iteration 4, and while we are working in iteration 4, the business is basically coming back and saying that, okay, as part of iteration, whatever we did, we need some change, right? And now the question is, when are they asking these changes to be implemented? Do they want it as part of iteration 4, or can we have another iteration after this? It depends. Depends on at what point are they asking, and what kind of changes are these? What is the impact? Because we have a strict window of 3 months. Assuming that it's a 3-month or a 6-month cycle iteration. Depends on how much we can consume. I mean, the iteration 4 has been planned in such a way, the 6-month window that has been planned in such a way that we have no room to accommodate additional changes. But however, if these changes are critical, what happens is they will hire additional manpower, be technical or testing team, whoever is required, and they'll analyze the changes, analyze the impact of the changes, and they'll hire the manpower, and then they'll get it done within the same iteration. Or if it can be deferred to the next iteration, then they'll plan another iteration and keep going.
Subhash, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. Is in the iteration 1 phase, who should be present in the first meeting when gathering the requirements? Besides the BA. Besides the BA, who else I could bring along to gather requirements?
So normally, requirements are dictated by business, right? It could be a subject matter expert or a product owner or a product specialist. Whoever is responsible for dictating the requirements should be definitely invited to the meeting. And also, sometimes if required, you may also want technical architects or senior developers also as part of the meeting. I mean, if the team is not working, if the technology team or the design team has nothing much to do, I would always invite them into meeting. I mean, let them come to the meeting or not, but I would just include them in the meeting. It's purely up to their discretion, whether they come or not. But however, if there is a situation where they start complaining about the feasibility of the requirement, then I normally keep pushing them, because the thing is, I don't want to be in a situation where I go into the meeting, analyze, gather the requirements, spend time documenting it, and after 3 or 4 days, when I reviewed with the technology team, they think that this is not going to work, this is not going to work. And again, I have to basically go back and redo everything. This whole waste of time could have been avoided, had I had the technical developers or artists, whoever, was raising concern. If they were part of the meeting, we probably would have saved, all the time.
Okay. So this means that I could also bring along technical tools for iteration 1, 2, 3, and 4, so to make the process much faster?
Correct. And also, so when I say developers, right, normally you would invite like the senior technical architect, or maybe a development team leader, right? Not the entire team will be invited, but whoever is representing the team probably will be included in the meeting.
Okay. Oh, okay. Just another thing is, since the lead technical developer might be busy with the other project, could he send his assistants to attend the meeting, or
Yeah. If someone is busy, then there will be some representative. They probably will send a representative who can talk on behalf of them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any questions based on whatever we spoke so far?
Subhash, I have just one question.
Yeah.
So I remember you telling us that we will be getting a template where we have to document everything, what exactly happened during the whole meeting, and then we have to send it out by the end of the day. Is that an every meeting thing, or is that every iteration thing? So do we have to send out a document after every iteration or after every meeting?
I'm not sure what document and what is the context behind sending it. I'm not sure. If you could elaborate it, please.
So I remember talking about we have to document the whole requirements, and then just so everybody has an idea and just so everyone knows that what exactly happened in the meeting today, we're supposed to also document the whole sheet, the whole process in a Word document, that what we went over throughout the whole meeting. So is that something we have to document every day or by every meeting, or does
I think you're basically mixing two things. You're talking about documenting requirements, and you're also talking about meeting minutes. I think you're basically mixing both of them, right? Let's separate. You set up meetings with the business users, right? And you ask questions, and they give you information, and you basically write quick notes, right? And once you go back at the end of the day, you basically summarize what was discussed in the meeting, and you send an email which is called as meeting minutes, or minutes of meeting, right? The minutes of meeting email will capture the list of attendees who attended the meeting, the key conclusions made in the meeting, any open items which are not still answered, which yet have to be completed, the due dates for those open items. All that information will be captured in the meeting minutes, right? Which basically summarizes what was discussed in the meeting, right? Versus the information that you have consumed, that information has to go into your BRD or FRD, whatever requirements are, right? Now, these requirements documents are, as I said, it could be any type of document, where it's the BRD or FRD, whatever document it is, right? Now, depending on the plan, as of how frequently you want to review it. So, for instance, I may set up 3 to 4 meetings, and from each meeting I have consumed some information, right? And I would compile all this into my document, and this document is a predefined template, a BRD or an FRD. There is a already structured standard format as of how a requirement document will look like. So what you're doing is you're consuming all this information, and you're basically organizing your requirement document accordingly. And depending on the plan, whether, let us say in a week, you had 2 meetings or 3 meetings, and you consumed all the information, maybe on Friday or the following Monday, you are going to share it with them, and you're going to have it reviewed. or probably every 2 weeks. So that is purely, there is no rule which says that, okay, the document has to be reviewed every day or every 2 days. That purely depends on what kind of project it is, what kind of style they are following, which is waterfall or, or agile, and then, based on what they want, how frequently they want it reviewed. So there are several factors which determine, but there is no rule, the book of rule which says that, okay, this has to be done in so much time.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. So there is actually a template for meeting minutes that has to be done from time to time.
See, if you're talking about meeting minutes, see, normally as soon as you conduct the meeting, by end of the day, I would publish the meeting minutes, right? See, if I had a meeting today, I cannot publish the meeting minutes after 1 week. That doesn't make sense. Nobody even remembers what. See, the purpose of publishing a meeting minutes is to summarize whatever we discussed today, right? And if you are publishing it after 1 week, nobody even remembers what we discussed. Yeah, but whatever the information that you consume and you documented requirements, yeah, probably you can, because you need time to document those into your requirement doc, whatever you're documenting, right? So that probably you can do it after 3 days, 4 days, after a week, or whatever agreement you have between you and the business. Status report is different. Status report of the project is pretty much the project plan.
And if certain companies will have like have certain components like where everybody that works for the project manager is all on one site, and about probably every week you're required to update on your project what status is part of the project.
I know what you're talking about. So basically, he is talking about the PMO meetings. PMO, which is Project Management Office meeting. So normally what happens is, assuming that it's a 6-month project or a 3-month project, whatever it is, right? The business has to be in loop with what is happening frequently, right? So in order to communicate the status of the projects to the business, there are weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings conducted depending on the agreement, and these meetings are called as PMO meetings. PMO stands for Project Management Office. Okay, and there is a special PMO team who is responsible for interacting with the technology team on a weekly basis and identify what was done, right, for that week, and set up a meeting, and they will review everything, and they will also report the project status. Right? So, see, technically, right? Let us say the project is a 3-month project. Simple, right? At the end of the first week, you probably should be at least 4 or 5% complete, right? At the end of second week, you should be around 10% complete or 12% complete. So in this way, on a weekly basis, they keep tracking the progress. Okay, so as of now, the project basically is requirements are complete, design is 20% complete. Next week, design is 60% complete. Next week, design is 100% complete. So in this way, they keep tracking the project status, and the project status at a high level is represented in 3 colors. Okay, I repeat, the project status basically is represented in 3 colors: green, yellow, and red. Alright. If the project status is represented as green, it means that everything is going as per the plan. Our plan was to deliver the project in 3 months. Based on the current status today, we are good. We are doing good. We will get it done, right? And if the project status is yellow, it means that we are definitely not on the track. But however, based on certain things that need to be taken care, we will be able to accomplish based on where we stand today. Red means that there is something terribly wrong that needs to be addressed, and if that is not addressed right away, this project is not going to make it as per the given time.
these meetings are held minus the stakeholders.
These meetings are held with the stakeholders. Yeah, this is for stakeholder update. And normally what happens is, these meetings, they have I used to drive these meetings myself. I was also a PMO coordinator. I used to go to each and every project. So there were like 4 to 5 different projects in our environment where I worked. I used to go to each and every project manager or the team leads and ask them, okay, last week you were 30% complete on the project. Where do we stand today? What's the progress? So update the plan. We had a simple Excel sheet where I used to update, and before the meeting, I used to publish this to everybody, and everybody used to start looking at it. And we used to kind of ask the status. Every team lead will step up into the meeting and they'll talk about, okay, this is what we did. I think we are doing good. These are the activities that we want to do next week, and I think we should be in a good shape. And if there's a project in red, then then whatever needs to be done, everybody basically jumps in and then makes sure that those pending items. For instance, the technology team is waiting for budget approval. Without a budget approval, they cannot hire resources. Because of some reason, maybe the business users were not available, or funding issue, the project funds were not approved, right? And for this is red flag for the technology, because they don't have money, they're not hiring people, right? So I think all this is basically discussed in the meeting, and then the goal is to bring all the items, especially when the project status is red, to bring it to a resolution as soon as possible.
Subhash, I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you told us that we're supposed to set up meetings with stakeholders to get the requirements that they need for the product. And then we're also supposed to, so is it the project manager who sets up the meeting, or is it us?
No. Why would a project manager set up a meeting? As a business analyst, it is your role to gather requirements, and I would assume that if you have to gather requirements, then you have to set up meetings for yourself. Nobody is helping you. But yeah, if you need to identify the requirements, yeah, somebody has to tell you, okay, who are the people that have to meet to get the requirements when you start a project. But nobody is helping you set up meetings. You are driving everything from end to end, period.
Okay, but I was talking about the meetings that are after that. Let's say we need a meeting with the developers because we have to explain them the requirements. So is that something that the project manager would help us with, or we can still go?
No one is helping you. No one is helping you. You have to help yourself.
So we just get in contact with developers and be like, okay, we have gathered the requirements from the stakeholders. Now we have to get in touch with you because we have to explain you exactly what they need.
Correct.
Okay.
That's right. See, again, depending on the project, there are situations where there is a separate BA who is working with the technical team, and you may sit with them and review the requirements with them. But in this whole process of getting things done, I don't think that you will get any help. Project manager is busy with his own activities, and you are basically coordinating and doing any and everything that you need to do from your end. The PMO. See, her question is, I have a question here. Yeah, so the question here is, so as a business analyst, is it your responsibility to conduct these PMO meetings? I mean, are you basically driving these meetings, or are you attending these meetings? That depends on the project manager. Right? I mean, I basically worked in the same project for several years. I knew basically in and out of it. I knew everybody in the project, and I knew what was going on. I had every update. So basically, with the level of expertise that I had, they could rely on me to basically get the job done. But normally, 80 to 90% of the scenarios, there will be a separate team which is called as a PMO team. PMO, that is called as PMO office. The PMO office has project coordinator. There is a special role called as a project coordinator role, whose role is to do all this activity. This is a very, very critical role.
Yeah. For this kind of PMO meeting, the update, you take it from the project manager or you take it directly from all the people concerned, like design team, our development team, etc.
You basically will, as a VA, you will interact with each and every team and get the update. Project manager has no role here. All he's going to do is he's going to ask you, okay, where is the report? And he's going to consume the report that you prepared. A project coordinator basically is the person who basically coordinates and identifies the project status, who runs the PMO activities, who understands what are the projects going on, what is the status of the project, who is working on which project, what are the pending items, what are the critical items, is there any concerns. All this basically needs to be communicated effectively to the business. So a project coordinator basically is responsible for doing all this activity. Alex, any questions, folks?
I have a question, Subhash. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. The iterations, when you were going back, you over a span of 1 year, and you did say it takes about 3 to 6 months, so I guess it only makes sense to have 4 iterations. But is there like a rule of thumb as the number of iterations you could have per project until it became absolutely absurd?
There is no limit on the number of iterations that you would have. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 30. I mean, see, as long as the business has new things that they want to implement, the project basically is never going to end. See, as long as there is a customer who is basically needing our services, the concept of the implementation of these new iterations are never going to stop.
And within each iteration,
right? We have so many retail stores, right? I mean, is there a stage where they decide that, okay, we have done enough, we are going to shut down? That's never going to happen, right? So as long as there is a customer who is basically needing services, the concept of implementing the solutions, iterations, is never going to stop.
Okay, and with each iteration, we can implement a different methodology, depending on the nature of the problem.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So normally what happens is when you start, see, I think I want to rephrase what I said. Maybe I'm not sure if I understood your question. But the moment we started defining these iterations, it means that technically we are following agile model. Agile is iteration, right? Now, eventually, let us say after a point, if you decide to go with waterfall model, yes, you can also go with waterfall. But I don't see any reason why anybody would do it. All right. Any questions on the iterative model that we spoke so far? Do you want to?
Before you get to the last stage of production, right? You get to testing, right? Isn't there? Okay. In fact, I think the explanation is there. So when you are testing, right? So the testers are testing the Scrum model. Or are they testing the?
No, I did not start talking about Scrum so far.
Okay. So
I'm going to talk about Scrum. We are not done with Agile yet.
Yes. I guess my question is, so once you get to the testing stage, right, isn't there like let's say you're designing a website, or isn't there like a demo website that you test first, to make sure all the requirements, right, before it goes to production?
Yeah, that's part of the testing, right?
Yeah, that's what. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to.
So that once the development is complete, the product will be delivered to the testing team, and the testing team will basically test it, and once they approve it, then it goes to the production. I'm also going to spend around at least 2 sessions deep diving into testing, and we'll learn every testing concept. Okay? And also, I'm going to discuss about software release management, which is a very interesting session after this, after the agile model, after I finish this Scrum model. Okay. Do you want to take a quick 10-minute break before we gather again? Let's do this. Let's take a quick 10-minute break, and we'll join back again, folks. Let's start again at 10:50. Okay? So the line is on hold, folks. We'll join back at 10:50.
I have a question. I have a question. Hello?
All right, folks. So the next model that we are going to discuss basically is Scrum methodology. And Scrum basically is a very, very aggressive mode of software development. It's a type of agile model. And when you're implementing this whole process using the Scrum methodology, I think there are certain things that you have to be implementing as part of the process. So let me go ahead and quickly deep dive into those steps for you. So to start with, so when you're implementing this Scrum methodology, the first thing that you will be documenting is your product backlog. All right, I repeat, as part of the Scrum implementation, so when you are implementing the project using the Scrum model, when you are implementing this project using the Scrum model, you will be documenting something called as, that's the very first milestone that is documented is called as product backlog. Okay? Now, what exactly is a product backlog? A product backlog basically is a document which identifies all the high-level features of the product. Let's say it's a banking application, right? We are going to identify what are the different features that this product will need, and that document very high level. From a feature standpoint of view, this is the product that we want, and these are the features that need to be implemented as part of the project. Okay? So that document is called as a product backlog. So let us say we have, and as a business analyst, you probably will be responsible for interacting with the users, and you are documenting this product backlog. And let us say, as part of the product backlog, we said that we want to implement, let us say, some 50 features of the website. Let us say F1 through F50. Okay, there are 50 functionalities or features that we want to, that we have identified as part of the product backlog, and we said, okay, these are the features that we want to implement. Okay, so once we have implemented this, once we have documented this product backlog, then the next step is the sprint plan. Okay, sprint planning. So now we know what we need, right? Now we need to plan how we are going to accomplish all these 50 features. We need to organize our sprint planning. Now, as part of the sprint planning, you basically identify how many sprints are required to accomplish our 50 features. All right. So it's a sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, sprint 4, and let us say we have identified that we would need 5 sprints to accomplish all our features. Okay. Now, what is a sprint? Sprint is nothing but an iteration. Okay. Now, the reason why it is called a sprint is a short cycle. Normally, when we discussed about iteration, we said that iteration could be anywhere between 3 to 6 months or even longer. But when it comes to sprint is a short cycle. Now, normally a sprint could be anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks normally, but also I wouldn't be surprised if it is 1 to 2 weeks also. But from a standard perspective, I would say a sprint could last anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. Now, that is the main reason Scrum model is called as very, very aggressive model. Within the span of 4 weeks, you're basically implementing a whole life cycle. Okay. Now, as part of the sprint plan, what we said is we have to allocate the features out of the product backlog to the respective sprint accordingly. So, as part of the sprint 1, we said that we'll implement F1 to F10. Right? Then here, as part of the second sprint, we have a plan. Let me go ahead and okay. So here we'll have F11 to F20, right? Then we have here we have F21 to F30, then F31 to F40, and we have the remaining features will be allocated. So basically what we said is we have a product backlog which has 50 features, and then as part of our sprint planning, we have basically allocated all the items. So the goal is to basically make this product backlog 0. Right? We have 50 features. We have 10 sprints or 5 sprints. Each of them we have allocated. Now the product backlog is taken care of. It's 0. It's empty. Yeah, Sarah has a question. Go ahead.
Does the sprint has to be equally divided, or it can be like F1 to F10, and then the next one can be F11 to F25?
It doesn't have to be equally divided. No,
okay.
That's not required.
Okay.
It's not required because see, the planning is purely based on. Okay, I think as part of the first sprint, we said we'll have 1 to 10. Now, who decides that? Okay, as part of the first sprint, we'll implement 1 to 10. So this is decided by the business. Because see, the thing is, as I said, Agile is all about identifying what is the topmost important item and implementing. Right? So the business will prioritize out of these 50. They'll give the prioritization, and you basically go ahead and allocate them. And also, while allocation, as part of the sprint planning. Now, first of all, who performs the sprint planning? It is the project manager. The project manager will also talk to the business to prioritize, and will also talk to the technology team to evaluate what is the time required. Because if each sprint is 4 to 6 weeks, then they have to make sure that whatever they are capturing or whatever they are planning to implement in a particular sprint is actually doable within 4 to 6 weeks, right? So all those are discussions that the project manager is going to set up with the technology business and then come up with this plan. The another word for iteration is sprint. The only reason why this is called as a sprint is because iteration normally is a longer cycle. Sprint is short cycle. Sprint is a shorter duration. Sprint basically, both are same. Iteration, sprint, both are same. So the only difference is that, okay, iteration is longer, sprint is short. Yeah, sprint, sprint race, right? It's a short race. Okay. All right. So once you start off, so once the sprint planning is complete, then the business, then the technology, everybody reviews it and everybody is kind of approving it, and the business is approving it. Then the next step is your sprint execution. Right? You start executing your sprint cycle. Right? So for instance, let us say you start off with the sprint 1. Right? So as part of the sprint execution, all right. So as part of the sprint execution, you basically have to first of all decide how you want to accomplish the sprint, right? So you have a start date and you have an end date already defined for the sprint. Let us say we have a 4 weeks duration for the sprint. Okay. Now, what are the activities that you are going to do in this sprint? What exactly happens in this sprint? Planning, then your requirement gathering, design. Yeah, development, testing, and production. Production of support. In this, everything will not happen simultaneously. It's a step-by-step process, right? So you basically, yeah, obviously, without requirements, yeah, I mean, probably if the requirements are 30–40% complete, the design team will catch up on the requirements, they'll start working. But definitely it is sequential, but there is a point where, you know, you can basically, whatever inputs they are, you can consume and you can start your design development and testing it. So now here in this sprint cycle, this is a very, very short cycle, which is basically a 4 weeks time. Right? Now, just imagine how aggressive this is going to be. You will hardly have 2 or 3 days for requirements gathering, you know, couple of days for design, few days for development, you know, and probably a week for testing, you know. So this is a very, very aggressive mode. And, you know, normally I have seen, especially when it is sprint cycle, I have seen teams spend around at least 10 to 12 hours a day working. And then it's very stressful because you have a lot of things to do and you have very short time. So your question is this model good? Yes. These days, this is one of the most popular model because it is aggressive. From a business standpoint of view, this is good because they are able to get whatever they want in short timeline. From a results point of view, yes, I mean, if the sprint planning is organized, if the plan is proper, execution is proper, why not? This is definitely a model which is very popular. I mean, there is a reason why 60 to 70% of the whole IT implementation is inclining towards agile and sprints. So there is a reason why they're doing it, because it is successful, provided you basically plan your activities, your execution properly. SDLC basically, this is also SDLC. Waterfall is an SDLC. You know, your RUP is an SDLC. Agile is also an SDLC. All of them are SDLC, but every model has a different way of doing it. You know, so you have different, you know, ice creams, but the only thing is the flavors are different. You have vanilla, chocolate, you know, strawberry. The flavors are different, but end of the day, it is ice cream.
Who is there for any particular or rather as the business concept that was
see, it is agile mode. It is the projects, the vision, the goals may constantly keep changing. Like for instance, I'm working on sprint 1, suddenly they may say, you know what, we probably want to descope a couple of them and we want to add new more. Right? So it is agile. The reason it is called agile is very, very fast moving. Quick moving. You prioritize, you deprioritize, get the job done. Whatever is important, identify it, get it done. Now it may also happen that just because we have planned that okay, F11 to F20 will be in second sprint, can change. They can probably bring in few items from sprint 3 to sprint 2 because the priorities have changed. So anything could happen.
Raj, a couple of quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
Now in planning, so sprint 1, if sprint 1 is not completed in time, or if there are any functions that are overlapping in terms of time, then those functions go to product backlog?
Yeah, I'm about to get there. So,
okay.
So let us say, so once I started the sprint 1,
mm-hmm.
and I by the time you know I finished my first 8 features implemented, the remaining 2
mm-hmm.
I realized that I don't have time for. Right, mm-hmm. F1 to F8 I was able to finish only till F8, and
mm-hmm.
the remaining 2 I don't have time because we already are out of time. Right. Not only what happens is these pending items will be promoted back to the product backlog. It was 0 initially, right? Now it is 2.
Okay. Now,
okay. Now what happens is you basically start the second sprint. Before you start the second sprint, you take a look at the product backlog. We have 2 items open, right? The question to the development team is, can we consume them and can we still incorporate them as part of second sprint or not? If yes, then again make this 0 and add the 2 new items as part of the second sprint, basically, which is the F9 and F10, right? But let us say if they say, oh no, we cannot do it, we don't have time, then the question is, if assuming that F9 and F10 are critical, they may ask the business to descope a couple of items from the current sprint. So let us say F19, F20 are least important, and F9 and F10 are more important. So what you'll do is you'll descope F19, F20 and put it back. Now again the product backlog is 2. And so in this way you basically keep working on the product backlog. You keep implementing, executing the sprints, and any and every pending item which is open will be promoted to the product backlog. So while the sprint and also as part of the requirements gathering as a business analyst, see, when you have just 2 or 3 days to gather requirements, you cannot document a BRD, FRD, you cannot document everything. So here, one of the most important milestones that you will deliver as a business analyst is user stories and use cases. We are going to talk about them. This is one way of documenting requirements. So we will talk about them. Okay. But however, as part of this whole process, it is very important that a business analyst is playing a very, very critical role. You are involved in pretty much all the phases, and when you start documenting requirements, even before you realize you are done with the requirements for second sprint, you will have to start working on the second sprint. So it's very, very fast pace environment. Yes.
Is the stakeholder a little bit flexible about the date of the release?
The dates are fixed and there cannot be any change until they have some critical requirement which needs some more time, which they have asked for additional requirement.
So what sort of
and again, by the time you realize that you finish your first sprint, normally now what is the business doing? They have new features that they want to implement, right? So this product backlog keeps increasing. By the time you finish your third or fourth sprint, the business is basically identifying all the new features that they want, and they keep adding to the product backlog. Okay. So what happens technically is, let us say by the time you reach the third or fourth sprint, you probably will realize that there are 40 more added. Now the project manager's job is to start planning again after 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this process is a never-ending process. Okay, so this is basically all about the Scrum model or methodology. There are few things that you need to remember as part of the process. Couple of things. Number one is the team structure, right? So who are the people involved in the process, right? So we have someone called as Scrum Master, right? Who is a Scrum Master? A Scrum Master basically is a dedicated person who is working on the project, and he is the person responsible for dictating the requirements. A Scrum Master basically is representing the business, and he is a dedicated person working with the business in the process of helping the technology team with the requirement. And The Scrum Master here is dedicated. Now the reason why he is dedicated, because normally when you talk about business users, product specialists, right? Their job is not to sit with the requirement with the technology team and give them requirements. Their job is to define new products. Every bank, every organization has to start coming up with new products, like Chase or Bank of America or any bank, financial institution. They keep coming up with new products because the goal is to generate business and make revenue out of it. Right now, here the role of a product specialist is to understand, define the product, not to sit with the business to the technology and then give them requirements. Right? But however, that's their additional task, they do it. But normally, this being a very fast-paced environment, we need someone who is very, very dedicated to the technology team, who can give them inputs whenever they need, and make sure that they have all the inputs that are required. So Scrum Master basically is playing a critical role in this whole process. Okay. Another set of team members we have is the project manager from business analyst. As you know, project manager is responsible for the sprint planning and managing the execution, and the business analyst is responsible for identifying, documenting the requirements, and ensuring that everybody is on the same page. We also have
sorry, just briefly, if you could distinguish between I understand Scrum Master is different, but what's the Scrum Master and business analyst? How would they because business analyst is documenting the requirements and Scrum Master, you said, is dictating the requirements. So if you could elaborate a little more on that, what's the key difference?
I mean, a Scrum Master basically is the product specialist, right? And now he is basically working closely with the whole team in the process of implementation. A business analyst basically is responsible for interacting with the Scrum Master, and a Scrum Master will dictate the requirements, and as the business analyst, you will set up meetings with the Scrum Master, and you are responsible for documenting the user stories. Make sure that you set up meetings, you review the requirements, make sure that the Scrum Master knows what he's going to get, and ensure that the requirements are reviewed and officially signed off from the Scrum Master. And as I said, as part of this process, you will basically write high-level requirements, which are kind of the reason why it is called as a user story or use cases is it's kind of a narration which kind of gives a clear picture as of what is the user, who is the user, what are they capable of doing, what are the features available, kind of high-level requirements. And the goal is to make sure that the requirements are documented, and then the Scrum Master has to review it, has to approve it, and the business analyst is held responsible for setting up these meetings with the Scrum Master and making sure that he gets an approval on all the user stories and use cases that he has documented.
Okay. So if I understand it correctly, hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, listening. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So you gather the requirements and then you set up a meeting with the Scrum Master and then go through.
No. Scrum Master is the one who is dictating the requirements. You will set up a meeting with the Scrum Master and you will document the requirements with.
Right. Okay. So he's a product manager. Okay.
Is that good?
Yeah. I think in a sprint environment, Scrum Master is stakeholder of the project.
Correct. In a sprint cycle, Scrum Master basically is technically the stakeholder. Yes.
Okay.
So the design development team, basically design team is designing the architecture, the development team is implementing the solution, and we have the testing team who is validating the product, and also the support team, who is basically supporting the customers in the, once the product is delivered. Okay. So these are the the team members and roles involved. Now there are a few things that you may want to know about the Scrum implementation. So normally in a Scrum based project, there are a few recommendations that Scrum proposes. The most important thing is that the entire team should be geographically, physically located in one office. So normally what happens is, this being a very fast-paced environment, if the team is scattered, right? If the team is scattered and sitting in separate locations, offices, it makes it very difficult to communicate, right? The time that needs to be spent on getting the job done is basically being spent on communicating, which is not good. We have very less time, right? And also, I can give you a simple example. When I was working with one of the projects, so we booked a conference meeting center where we had around 25 developers, and I was basically also in the room. And if any developer has a question, they would quickly, ask the question, and I have to clarify the question right on the spot. Questions with respect to requirements, right? And the thing is, it shouldn't be like, okay, he's sending an email, he's waiting, and I'm just doing something else. No. Somebody has a question, just approach me quickly in the room. Everybody's in the same room, right? Everybody's working parallelly, and I should basically clarify the questions immediately. And let us say if I do not have an answer on the spot, then I have to take probably an hour or two. I have to come out again, set up a meeting, probably call the Scrum Masters, or send an email, and make sure that I get the answers and give the input back to the technology team right away. And if there is a delay, be it 2 or 3 or 4 hours delay, then the developer starts sending escalation emails saying, okay, we are waiting. This is on hold because Subhash still has to get back to us. So they will put you on the spot because they are not able to do their job because you did not give them the inputs. So in this way, it's a very fast-paced environment where everybody is working very aggressively to get the job done.
I have a question. Regards to the sending emails, can we use an app such as GroupMe, to get in touch quickly with the team members? GroupMe is an app basically where you add all the members that you have on the team, and let's say something that you haven't covered in the meeting, you could just send them the quick message, text them basically.
Yeah, that also happens, and also there is a messenger option available, just like you have a Yahoo Messenger. In the real time, there are also messengers which are used for communication between users.
I just wondered if it considered professional. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, depending on based on the infrastructure, you can also set up the groups, and then you can basically work it out. So it's very difficult to have a team working offshore because as a business analyst, even in spite of the agile recommendations, because of the budget issues, you cannot have everybody on site, right? And so normally what happens is, in those circumstances, as a BA, you will basically have to spend time, late nights, giving inputs to the developers, because you cannot say that, I'm tired, I want to go home and I'll give them next day. No, because if you're not giving inputs on the same day, the whole night, which is basically daytime for the offshore team, it's wasted. And also, one of the challenges is that if they have questions, if they are stuck, they will keep calling you. Even if it is midnight, you basically should be available. But that rarely happens, though.
I have a question.
If you don't have answer, then so if you don't have answer, then technically you will basically have to go back to the business. You need to get the answers, the next day. You don't have an option, but the sooner the better. Right? And also sometimes you may have to start working early in the morning to accommodate the offshore hours. Normally, when we worked in the industry, we always believe in having at least 3 to 4 hours of overlap between the onshore and offshore hours. That's the model that we used to follow. Yeah, so somebody on the phone has a question?
Yes, I do. Yes, like you said, teamwork, like, like any bank, like Capital One, like SunTrust, something like that. Okay.
Sorry, did you ask me? I did not get your question. Come again?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What was that?
Andre, are you asking me a question? I apologize. I did not understand your question.
Oh, I was saying though, can't work like any bank, like SunTrust, Capital One, like a Chase Bank Center.
I mean, see, all of these banks technically have different models. It could be agile or waterfall or sprint. Yeah, all of them follow the same model. That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question regards to gathering the information. What exact question do you ask stakeholder in terms of gathering the requirement for designer and developer?
A design and development team is never going to talk to the business. As a business analyst, you will be documenting the requirements and you will be communicating these requirements to the design and development.
Yes. My is that what question would you be asking the stakeholders in terms of what the designer needs and what the developer needs? How would you know what the designer and the developer needs?
So when you are documenting the business and functional requirements, having said that you know how to document requirements, you will be analyzing the business process and you will be documenting the requirements. Now, you will basically know that when you understand how to document a business or a functional requirement, once you get the ideas of how these requirements are documented, I think you will basically think from a designer perspective or from a developer perspective as of what exactly is the business requirement and what information they may be looking for, and you will document the specifications accordingly. But I think once you get to the stage of learning how to write these functional specifications, I think you will know it. You will know what exactly they look for, and you will understand how to write it. Probably once we start next week, once we start documenting the business and functional requirements, I think you will get there.
Thank you.
And also, we normally conduct Scrum meetings in the projects where we have team members, all the team members, on a daily basis. Early in the morning, maybe like 8 or 8:30, the business hours. As soon as the business hour starts, these Scrum meetings are conducted to verify the project status. They identify what were the tasks done yesterday. What were the goals for today? Are there any challenges? So all those aspects are, because see, it's only a 4 to 6 week window, and you cannot have even one individual slacking. One individual not getting the job done basically is going to impact the whole process. So the goal is to tightly monitor and control and make sure everybody is on the same. So we basically set up meetings and make sure that we are coordinating the whole process effectively and efficiently.
How many projects might the business be working?
So at any point, how many projects will a BA work? That depends. It could be 1, it could be 2 or 3, depends on how complex it is. And also, one project may have like 10, 15 BAs working also, depending on how complex it is. So there is no book of rule which says it should be 1 or 2.
So if there are 15 BAs, then how are the requirements,
The whole, see, when there are multiple BAs required, the whole project is basically divided into modules, and one module probably will be assigned to multiple VAs. Yeah, there are work allocation planning done accordingly.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Does the project take like few weeks or like you know like several months and stuff like that to get the job done?
It may take. It depends on what you want to accomplish. It may take 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, or even more, until you accomplish what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. So the project basically is not going to end.
Okay.
All right. If you don't have questions, then I think the next important topic is going to be release management. Give me 1 second, folks. Just give me 1 second, folks. All right, folks, are you able to see this, or do you want me to expand this? This is not good. Okay. Is this better? No?
Yes.
Give me 1 second, folks. I'm just trying to adjust this. Okay. Good. Okay, folks on the line, are you able to see the screen? Says software release management process.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Positive, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. So here it's very important for us to understand this process that I'm trying to explain. And remember, you will not find this information online or anywhere. Nobody is going to teach you this. So please pay attention to what I'm talking. So what I mean by software release management process is, so far I think what we did was we went ahead and we spoke about the software development lifecycle. So we said that, okay, we have planning, analysis, design, development, testing, right? But as soon as you document requirements as a business analyst, and once you hand it over to the developer, right? Once the development design is complete, once the development starts, from that point till the project is delivered to the customers, what are the minute level of activities that happen? You need to have a very, very detailed understanding of what exactly happens. How is the whole process of development working? How is it, delivered to the testing? How is it again further delivered to the business and the customers? So there is a very, very detailed process involved, and it is very important that as a business analyst, you understand this whole process. And again, as I said, you will not find any of this information online. Whatever I'm teaching you here is based out of my experience. Okay. Okay. So to start with, I have taken a very simple example. Assuming that we have 3 programmers or developers in the project. Okay. So the assumption is that as a BA, you have documented requirements and you have communicated the requirements. Design is complete. Now the programmers have the requirements, they have the design, and they have started their development activity. Okay. So programmer 1 is working on some 3 features or files. Programmer 2 is working on some 2 of the features, and programmer 3 is working on F6, F7, F8. So there are some files or features, functionalities that they are trying to implement. Okay. Now normally in the real time in the industry, now again remember, before I start talking about all this, if there is any technical concept involved in whatever I'm talking about, this is only for your understanding. Okay. There may be some technical terms that I'm going to be talking about. This is only for you to understand what they are. How do they work? How is the code implemented? That is not our business. This is only for you for a process. The reason why I'm teaching you this is for you to understand the process and the jargon and the terminology. That's all. Okay. And wherever a BA is going to play a role, I'm going to stress on that as well. Right? So here we have 3 programmers, and normally what happens is when the programmers start writing the code, right? It is very, very important that this code is managed properly. So you are spending millions of dollars. At the end of the day, the programs are the output, right? For whatever you have spent time on, right? Now, normally, in order to make sure that these programs or the code written by the programs are secured, we have source code repositories. Okay? A source code repository basically is a server. It is a system where all the programs written by the developers are stored. Okay? The reason it is called as a source code is because source code is nothing but programs. The programs written by the programmers are called as source code. So whenever somebody is saying source code, it means the program. Now, what programs are these? How are written? I'm not worried. All I know is that okay, source code management tool or repository is basically a tool which is exclusively used for storing and managing the code. That's all you have to know. Okay? Now, in the real time, there are different type of source code repository tools. Okay? And as a business analyst, you will never use it. You will never even log into it. You will never access it. Even if you ask, they will not give you access. Okay. Now, there are tools like source code management tools like Visual Source Safe. It's a Microsoft product. Okay. Then we have Subversion. Then we have WinCVS. All these are different source code management tools. Okay. All you need to know is that as soon as the programmers program the system, the code is stored in the repository. Now, why is it stored in the repository? Simple example, let us say programmer 1 is working on 3 files, 3 programs, okay, and suddenly his computer crashes, right? Whatever time he has spent on implementing that for the past few weeks is lost, and you cannot afford to lose the code, right? Because you have to spend the same amount of time to get it done, right? So the protocol that normally is followed is on a daily basis. The programmers, as soon as they are done before they leave, the protocol is that they have to check in the code. And as they check in, store the code in the repository. Okay? Any questions so far? The protocol that they normally follow is that every programmer, as soon as they are done with the coding today, let us say if you have written 100 lines of code today in file 1. So before I leave, I'll just save it in the repository. That's all.
Storing is manually, not automated.
It's manually stored. It's not automated. Okay? All right. So let us say, and also always remember, the once the source code repository is updated, let us say all these programmers have stored the code in the repository. They have finished their programming. They say, okay, we are done with whatever we need to do. Now we have stored the code in the repository. Okay. Now what happens? What is the next step? Next step. See, so far each of the programmer has individually developed the code, right? Now, in order to make this into a system, we need to integrate all these files, and we need to install it somewhere, right? So I have 3 programmers who have written the code and who have stored it separately in the repository. But now, if I want to make it as a system, I need to integrate all these files, first of all, right? And I need a computer where I can integrate all these files and install these files, right? And that system is called as development server or dev server. Okay, now what is a dev server? Remember, don't get confused. Server is nothing but a computer which has high config. Don't even think beyond it. Right? I repeat, a server is nothing but a computer which has high configuration. That's all. Okay? So now what happens is all the there is a release engineer who is also called as a deployment engineer. deployment specialists, whatever you want to call. As soon as the programmers get their job done, as soon as they store the code in the repository, they send an email to the release engineer and ask him to install it on the development server, right? So the release engineer is going to integrate all the files and he's going to install the code on the development server. So he integrates, installs, he configures, whatever he does, right? So once he is done, then he's going to send an email to the whole team saying that, okay, I have integrated, the whole thing, I've installed it, go ahead and test it, right? So now the development team, whoever, all the developers, whatever they have done, they make sure they test it, make sure everything is working, right? So once they test and they ensure everything is working, then the same code is installed in the another server which is called as IST server. IST stands for Integration System Testing. Yeah.
Will these programmers separately code and send it to the source code repository? And when the integration is done, is there a possibility, or does it normally happen that these codes don't integrate easily with each other?
I don't worry about it as a B. If the integration is not properly done, then it's the developer's headache, it's the release engineer's headache.
But then it will have to go back and
if there is an issue, then they will figure out. Yeah, I mean, they have to make sure that whatever they have to give proper instructions to the release engineer so that he can install it properly. If they're not doing it, then there will be a lot of back and forth going on, right? And I'm nowhere involved in it as a BA.
Yeah, as a BA, right? In terms of integrated system testing, as a BA, is it manual testing or automated testing?
Whatever testing it is.
So it could be
from a BA perspective, it's only manual.
Only manual.
But let's talk about the IST here for a second. So to repeat what I said, once the developers validate what they have, test their application, whatever they have done, the same program, integrated program, is installed on another server which is called as IST server. Okay. Once the installation is complete, the release engineer is going to take the same code. He's going to install it again on this server, and once the installation is complete, they make sure everything is working. Then they send an email to the testing team and ask them to test. So the testing performed by the IST team is only on this IST server. Now the question is, we already have the same program installed here. It's working, right? Why are we installing it on a separate server? Why can't the testing team test on the same dev server? Why do we need two separate? It's not a backup.
You need a product. You don't get through.
Kind of close. It's not a backup, first of all. Always. Let me explain. For a second, let us assume that there is no IST server. Okay. So we have dev server. Now the testing team is testing the release on the server. Okay. Now remember, software development is always in release. Okay. Now let us say on day one, okay, we are releasing R1. The name of the release R1. Just like Windows has a release version. Every release will have a features and name. Right. Let us say we want to on first day we have released R1. The name of the release. R1 has 3 features: F1, F4, F5, F6. You can see the developers cannot develop everything and deliver in one shot, right? So what they did is they developed each of the feature. Programmer 1 has developed F1, programmer 2 has developed F4, programmer 6 has developed F6, and they and these 3 features are integrated and installed on the server. Now the testing team is testing those features. Okay. Now while the testing team is testing those features on development server, what is the development team doing? They are working on the R2, right? Second release. They are working on second release, and the second release probably has F5, F2, and the F7. Right? Okay. Now, when they start working on the release, again they put the code in the repository, and they also have to install it on the development server to test, make sure everything is working. They keep, installing, uninstalling. They keep doing all the things on the development server. Now, when there are a lot of things going on, installing, uninstalling, and I'm restarting the servers. When all these things are going on, this development server becomes highly unstable. See, if I'm giving you a computer and I'm asking you to test or I'm asking you to write a Word document, at the same time I'm restarting it. Do you think you can finish your Word document? No. Similarly, you're asking the testing team to test on this server, and you're shutting down, restarting it again and again, and you're doing a lot of crazy things. The environment becomes unstable, and I cannot test it. Right? And what happens is, even if there is 2 hours of downtime, and if there are 10 QAs testing, 20 hours of manpower is lost. We don't want that. So we are isolating the development and the testing environments and making sure that nobody is interfering with each other's job. And also, if we have to install on IST server, if the development team has to install on IST server, they'll do it only after office time. Normally, like late in the evening, 8 or 9, when nobody is testing, they take the permission, they take a window, and then they install, so that there is no disturbance. Okay, so now as part of the testing, obviously they find defects, right? They find issues. And again, all these issues normally, from a process perspective, can be reported to a business analyst, right? And as a business analyst, you know which developer is working on which functionality. Obviously, you'll know it, right? Your job is to verify that defect and assign it to the respective programmer. And what are the programmers? Let us say there are 10 defects. Programmer 1 has 3 defects in his file 1. Programmer 2 has 3 defects in file 4, and programmer 3 has 4 defects in his file 6. So what are they going to do? They're going to update the code, right? And again, they're going to store the code in the source code repository. Again, they're going to send an email saying that, okay, we have fixed it, please install it. Now, from the source code repository, where is the file going to be installed? In dev again. It's never going to be installed in IST directly. It will be installed in dev, right? The developers have to test, make sure that whatever the defect they have fixed, they are working. Once they test it, then the same release will be promoted on the IST server. Now the previous release was R1. Now here it's the enhanced version of R1, right? So we can say R1.1. The R1.1 release with the fixes for release 1. Okay?
Two phases of testing. One by the developer and one by the
Right. So once the development team installs the release 1.1 on this server, dev server, they test it, make sure all the defects are fixed, and sometimes as a BA you will also be asked to retest those. Just testing. Again, it's only manual. We will talk about it. And now the IST server will have the release 1.1 with the new defects, new release, right? So again, the testing team will test. They'll make sure everything is working as expected. So once they are fine, then the same code R1.0, R1.1 together has basically has the latest version. So that will be installed on the UAT server. There is another server called as UAT server, which is UAT stands for User Acceptance Testing. We'll get there. Client testing. Yeah. So another server, so the same code which was installed on IST server will now be installed on the UAT server. UAT stands for User Acceptance Testing. Okay. Now here we have tested everything. Okay. Now the objective of this UAT testing is the business representatives. Before this product is delivered to the clients, end users, the business users or the stakeholders, they have to validate, they have to test, make sure that everything is as per the expectation before it is delivered to the customers. So the final testing performed on the product before it is delivered to the customers is called as UAT testing, user acceptance testing. Now normally what happens is, see, these are business users we are asking them to test. Do you think they can sit from morning to evening and test? No, they don't have time. So maybe in a day they'll spend 1 hour or 30 minutes. So what they do is they again hire a dedicated team, testing team. So in addition, just like IST testing, they will have another testing team, but this testing team is testing on behalf of the business. They are doing the same job. They have their own strategies and things. Yeah.
And that will be the Scrum Master involved in UAT.
Yeah, if it is exactly, yes. The Scrum Master involved, whoever is the business user, they will be involved and they validate the application and make sure everything is working as expected. Now here, do you think they will not find defects? They will find issues. They will definitely find issues. And let us say they have found around 6 defects, right? Again, all these defects will be reported to the business analyst, right? And again, the business analyst is going to communicate this to the programmers. Programmers will fix the issues and they will upload the code in the repository. From the repository it will go to the dev. From dev, will it go to UAT directly? No. It will go to the IST team, because somebody has to test it before it's going to the UAT. So the IST team will test it. Then again, once they approve it, then it will go to the UAT. And once they test it, and once everything is fine, this release is considered as approved. The testing team officially has approved it. Now what? The next step is to, once it is approved, then the code is promoted to another server called as COB, Continuity of Business Server. It's a COB server. I repeat, once the business approves, saying that, okay, we have done the testing, now let's go ahead and release it to the client. They have approved it. Okay. Then that package, that code is installed on another server called as COB server, which is Continuity of Business Server. Okay. Now again, the business, then the testing team, everybody tests the application, make sure everything is working, and once they approve it, then finally the code is installed on another server, which is called as production or prod server. So once this is installed, the business, the testing team, everybody tests, make sure everything is working, right? Once everything is fine on this server, then they send an email to the clients. Let us say it's a website, right? They send an email saying that, okay, this is the website, this is the link, this is your ID password, go ahead and start using, right? So here, when the clients start, let us say you open a browser and you enter www.bankofamerica.com. The moment you hit enter, your request is actually hitting the production server, right? It's a client server technology, right? What happens is, the moment you hit enter, the request for you to access the Bank of America page is actually being passed to the server, the production server. The production server will respond back with the page. Okay? And now you enter the user ID password and you hit enter. Again, that ID password is passed to the production server. The server will validate and it will populate, respond back with your account details. So in this way, all the client communication is catered from the production server. Okay? Now, question. What is the point of having this COB server? And we know that IST is for the testing team. We know that UAT is basically for the end users. This seems like there is no point in having it. Why are we having a COB server?
I believe the COB server is for if there's an updated version, they would have to, another team would have to actually update that version while still having that website still active.
A simple way of saying it is COB is a backup server. COB server is a backup server. I'll explain you why and how this is important and critical. Okay. Now, so far we have finished Release 1, we have, let us say, release 1 has 3 features installed. Now everything is fine. Now, what is the development team doing? They're working on second release, right? R2 has like 3 features again. Now they develop it, they test it, they put it on the IST. IST testing is complete, goes to UAT. UAT testing is complete, now it goes to COB. Now the COB has which version? 2.0, which has 6 features. Production has only 3 features so far, right? Now what do I need to do? I need to install the new package on this R2. But if I have to install the new package, I have to shut down, right? Obviously, when I'm installing and then doing activities on the server, system is not going to be available. When somebody is trying to access it, it will be error 500. But in the real time, do you think these big giant companies, can they afford even 1 second downtime? No. 1 minute of downtime for Amazon can cost them millions of dollars, right? So technically, we need a backup. Now, what happens is before they install on the production, what they do is they switch all the traffic from prod to COB. Switching traffic is nothing but one configuration change that they do. All the instead of hitting all the production servers, it will be routed to the production. This is a simple configuration change. How do they do that is none of my business. Okay. So once it goes to the COB server, then technically from a client perspective, they wouldn't know which server they are accessing. All they know is that okay, now we are seeing 6 features.
There's no downtime.
There is no downtime because this is active. COB is active, right? Now all I'm doing is COB is basically is as good as the real time. So once you change the configuration, normally what happens is when you try to access the system during that macro second when they are switching these servers, you will find this error message. But once you refresh, you will see that the page is loading. So it means that they are doing some configuration updates, releases. Okay. So now that the whole traffic is pointing to the COB, production is available. Now what I can do, I can shut down, I can do whatever I want, right? I can shut down, I'll reinstall the release 2, make sure everything is working, test it, and once everything is fine, then again switch the traffic back from COB to production.
Would COB be pretty much like a beta version, or
COB basically is a replica of production, same as production. There's no change. No. So once the production, the traffic is switched from COB to production, pretty much the client will not see any change. So there is no downtime. So again, if the clients start reporting issues, again all the issues will be reported to the BA. The BA will again communicate to the technology. Again, this whole process continues. So this is all about the software release management. And again, they may have multiple dev servers, multiple ISP servers, depending on, because they have so many releases going on. So they may have multiple servers also. But I think if you understand this, because what happens is once you get into the industry, these are jargons and terminology that people start using. And if you understand this, I think, you can basically relate this process to anywhere that you go in the industry. You'll be good, that's a guarantee. Any questions that I can answer?
Yes, I have a question. I get the gist of the whole process. When you said that at the testing stage, when the BA gets to know the defect and he's reporting it to the programmer, is there a specific documentation that a BA has to do, or
no?
Is it no? Okay.
No, the defects are already documented in some defect management tools. Okay.
Okay.
And your job basically is just to communicate and tell them that okay, this is the defect, please look into it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Unless and until a BA is reporting a defect, there is a documentation involved by a BA, which we will talk eventually while we are discussing about testing. But there is no specific documentation as such that a BA is going to do at this point. All he has to do is communicate it to the respective the technical team.
So the BA's involvement is more mediating between.
Correct. More into coordination.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
Subhash.
Hold on one second.
My question is, before it goes to production, right? Well, let's say you're designing a website for a client before it goes to production. Does it have to go through a stress test first to see how many users?
It will go. Yeah, it will go through a lot of testing, test testing, load testing, then unit testing, integration, so many things, which we will discuss eventually. I'm going to discuss eventually. But one more thing is, this COP testing is also called as dry run. You know, in the industry, the COP testing, just for your information, COP testing is also called as dry run. Sometimes they call it as dry run, just for your information. Dry run, D-R-Y, dry run, yes. Dry run, yeah. Dry run means that, okay, they are testing it in the final stage before it is promoted to production. It's as good as COP testing. You will not find this information online, for sure. The other concepts we can look and you can get more information of. But I thought this was something which everybody needs to know, because once you get into the industry, people start talking these jargons, and if you understand this process, you can basically get into any process and you will be able to get into the process easily. Okay. Any questions, folks?
Yes, Subhash. So UAT and COP is the same kind of testing?
Yes. The testing performed is the same.
Okay. But
IST is one team. UAT could be a different testing team. But the objective is to basically test and then multiple people test and make sure it's working.
Mm-hmm.
The UAT testing normally is performed by the business users. As I said, the product specialist like a Scrum Master could be involved. And in addition to this, they may also if they need a support, they'll have a separate testing team also working with them, testing the product on the UAT server. So I think I'll publish the notes, whatever I have written, and also this slide also for you probably tomorrow after the class. And I'm assuming that all of you have the blog access. Last week, I think one video probably was uploaded, and all the videos will be uploaded as well. So if you still need some blog access and also some videos access, everything will be you can talk to my team and you can take it from there. Right. So before I wind up, any questions that I can answer for today? Folks on the line?
Yes, Subhash. So all the testing are done by QA or
yes, the entire testing is done by QA, and a business analyst also plays an important role. A business analyst is also involved in the testing.
Okay.
So we'll talk more about testing concepts eventually.
Can we join QA while they're doing the testing?
You will, as a business analyst, you will definitely join QA while they're testing. See, you have finished your requirements. What else are you going to do? Technically, tell me what else have you left to do? Nothing, apart from testing. So that's the reason. And again, testing is only manual, so I wouldn't worry about learning. It's a very simple task. See, having said that, you understand the requirements, you documented the requirements. Testing is very easy for you. A BA is the best QA. Right. All right, folks. If you don't have any questions, then I think I'm done. So let's meet tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Bye.
Thank you, Subhash.
Thank you, Subhash.
Thank you, Subhash.
Thanks, Subhash.